Welcome to EdScoop TV. I'm Wyatt Kash, and I'm here today with Val Emrich. Val is the Director of Instructional Technology and School Library Media for the Maryland State Department of Education. Val, thanks for being with us and welcome.
You're welcome.
So Maryland's, I know, involved in a lot of initiatives. You, I understand, are kind of helping to lead some of the technology strategy plans for them. Tell us a little about what you're working on.
Okay. In Maryland, we had a tech plan that expired in 2012. So it's about time for us to start with a new one. We were waiting for the national plan to come out, and it did come out. So we're following a lot that's going on in the national plan, but we're putting an extra spin on the Maryland plan where student learning is going to be our umbrella. And under student learning, there are several subgroups. So what we're going to do is take the objectives that we identify from the goal of student learning and have every of the other subgroups, whatever they put in their area, will be embedded underneath the goals in student learning. So when you come into our tech plan, which will be a website and it will be a living document, we're going to include a lot of integrated video clips, et cetera, a lot of multimedia. But when you come to our tech plan, you will see a crosswalk right from the beginning that's based on student learning, but includes parts and pieces from all the other subgroups. At the same time, we'll have the other subgroup areas pure, so that you can see infrastructure, you can see assessment, you can see teacher proficiency, and go directly there too. But it's a little bit different in the fact that we do have the crosswalk in the beginning.
Sounds good. And let's maybe walk into each of those areas. So for infrastructure, what would be an example of some of the initiatives Maryland's in the midst of to expand?
Well, one of the things for student learning, obviously, to have the infrastructure built so that students can access the internet as appropriate. So that would be something that would go under one of the goals for learning. In assessment, it would be that we had formative assessments arranged that matched with all of our standards and with what was going on in the classroom, that could immediately feed back to the teachers data on the assessment so that then they could take their instruction and customize it for each student.
So regarding infrastructure and broadband, how would you characterize where Maryland is in their school districts in terms of having broadband, not only at schools, but increasingly, as we're hearing, the ability for students to have access to broadband at home to do their homework?
And broadband is not my area.
Okay.
I have to say that. We've come a long way over the last few years. I think Raise to the Top helped a lot with the infrastructure, but we still have remote areas that are having trouble having access to the internet, some of our students. We noticed that some of our communities are also picking up and offering internet access in a wide area so that some of those students too have access as well from them.
And regarding things like assessments you mentioned, can you talk a little bit about what platforms schools are using or experimenting with to sort of speed along the ability to use technology as part of the assessment process?
Well, they've had assessments in place. A lot of them have had online assessments in place for a long time. At the State Department, during Race to the Top, we had a group that was the formative assessment group, created a whole volumes of assessments that teachers can use online. And they worked with educators, so it wasn't the State Department creating these, it was educators and the State Department. They will all be available in our Go Open platform that we're going to choose. And we have kind of chosen one, but they will be available. And the interesting thing about that is in the repository where all these will be sitting, the repository will recognize IP addresses so that they know if it's a Maryland IP to allow people directly into those assessments so that the teachers can use them.
Interesting. We're hearing a lot about Go Open. Can you talk a little bit more about the platform or the tools that teachers will have so they can...
Sure. We're excited about it. During Race to the Top, we had thousands of resources created and identified. So right now, what we're doing at the state is going through all of those thousands of resources to make sure they're still viable and current, and then at the same time meta-tag them so they can go in a repository. So we chose Amazon Inspire, and we are going to be working with them once they're live. They're willing to upload our thousands of assets that we have. I think at this point we're going to try a little bit of an experiment and take the same resources we put into Amazon Inspire from the beginning, we're going to put just a few in, and we're not going to put all of them in there. And at the same time, try another platform as well and see which one our teachers are more comfortable with. But at this point in time, we're looking towards Amazon Inspire.
And what's the timetable for that?
Well, June 2016.
Oh,
Apparently there was some copyright problems and they had to pull back. It went live in June,
I
Amazon
see.
Inspire, and they had to pull back. So we're awaiting the actual it actually getting out of beta.
I gotcha. Well, appreciate that's the sort of the nature of the beast with these things.
Yes, it is.
Terrific. Well, talk to me about what other innovative initiatives that Maryland's doing.
We've got some really fun things going on. One of the things is Maker Movement, which may or may not include technology. But for Digital Learning Day this year, we have worked with Digital Harbor Foundation and all of our districts. Every one of the districts has a 3D printer or access to one through their public library, wherever. And what we're going to do is send each district a file, and they will be able to make a 3D model of their district or the city. And then on Digital Learning Day, we're going to have a student from each one of the districts come down to the State House with the governor, and they'll put the map of Maryland together in a 3D.
Wow, that's interesting.
So that's a lot of fun. But we have a lot of other maker movements going on. We noticed that it started probably the beginning of last year, a year and a half ago maybe, that grassroots teachers were popping up with the maker movement. And we said at the state, that would be really good if we got involved. So I actually have someone on my team who's heavily involved with the maker movement, has now created a consortium of people from the state as well as nonprofits, quite a few district people, to come up with ideas, share ideas, probably look at funding sources for the maker movement for the classrooms, because usually you use things that are pretty inexpensive. So, but sometimes you want to go a little further. So they're looking at ways to do that. We also had a group of teachers come in and write some maker lessons and tie them to content standards, because that's one of the things that worries a lot of teachers. I don't see how this connects, but it connects in a lot of ways. You can base it on your standards, which teachers do, but it also takes Bloom's taxonomy and turns it upside down, because you're starting with creating and evaluating what you've done, as opposed to just learning something first and then building to this application level. You start with the application first. And the students really do understand, if they understand it's okay to make a mistake, and they keep playing with it until it's right. I just shared with a group here, Three Little Pigs. It was a second grade project where the students were given maybe about 5 or 6 different materials to use. And they were to build a house for the 3 little pigs, and they had a little paper pig that went in the middle of the house. And then with a hairdryer, they tested them to see if the houses would not move. So you would do one lower level of your hairdryer, and then speed it up a little bit, and then the high level. And if the house moved or the pig fell over, then they had to go back and revisit their design and see how they could figure it out. So one group actually took rubber bands and wrapped it around the house that helped it stick to the tabletop so it didn't go anywhere. But it worked.
Interesting. Well, that was a great learning experience.
Yes.
Well, lastly, a lot of ideas here at the SETDA Leadership Summit.
A lot.
What 1 or 2 ideas piqued your interest that you'll be taking back to Maryland?
One of the things I really enjoy hearing, and I really believe in it, is with professional development for teachers, that we model for our teachers professional development the way we want them teaching in the classroom. That's really important to me, and I've heard that throughout this conference, and in past ones too, that's very important to a lot of people. Can we expect our teachers to do what we're not doing at the state level? And
how might you facilitate that in Maryland, do you think?
Well, I already started.
Okay.
I don't like to do any presentations unless it is hands-on and teacher-centered. But I did learn some tricks here, and I think I would like to take them back and try them as well.
Such as?
Let me think. One was a way that they switched the teachers around in groups, and I thought that was pretty interesting, the way that they had done that. Another was just different ways that they reached out to teachers for professional development. We do a lot of webinars, but there are other things that can be done, and other ways you can bring your teachers in to do the webinars as opposed to someone at the state level doing them. And it's so invigorating when I come here. Every year I leave thinking, I'm not doing enough. Because there's so much out there and so many people are doing so much, I go back thinking, what else can I do? Let me add this.
Well, I appreciate your heart to want to do that and bring that back to your colleagues back in Maryland. Well, Val Emrich, thank you so much for sharing some of your observations from here and some of the things that you're working on in the state of Maryland.
You're welcome. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. I'm Wyatt Kash with EdScoop TV. Thanks for being with us, and look for more of our content on edscoop.com.